Last week, I talked about taking things personally. Anybody here last week? Some of you were here last week.
Yep.
Taking things personally, from the book by Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements was the basis for it. And I reminded us that taking things personally is how we are when we give our power away to somebody else. That we make whatever they say truth, and then we have a feeling about that, because we take it personally. If someone tells us we're really good, we take it personally, and we adjust our way of being based on that. If somebody tells us something really bad about ourselves, then we take that as truth and we adjust that. Adjust the way we feel about it based on what they say. We make what others say true, and we take it personally. We've made ourselves the center of their universe and responsible for how they feel and what they say. Yuck. And so the idea is to not do that. To realize that I have the power to decide, no matter what anybody says, if it's true or not for me. It's up to me. It's my decision about that. I take my power back from that. It might be true, it might not be true. I have the opportunity to decide what that is, though. That's the power that I have, what anybody says or anybody does to me. So one of my examples from last week was what I called one of the ouches. There's someone who has been supporting Soul Center from the beginning, like I said, almost 8 years. From the beginning, for a fairly large amount of money every month. Every month that person gives the same amount of money. And just last week, or a few weeks ago, they stopped giving money and unsubscribed from everything, from the newsletter and from the blog. And so I was like, ouch, ouch, right? But here's something else that happened in there. Is I assume that they don't like me. Like I made up this story. I made up this story about why they did that. And why they did it, I decided this week, or at the time, that the reason they did it is I had that quote from Anne Marie Arnold, and it had Donald Trump's name in it, and it had Elon Musk's name in it, and it started off by saying, some are here to, not everybody is here to heal, some are here to reveal. And then we went through this whole thing, and I'm like, she got mad about that. But she's mad about that. Maybe I was too political. Was I political when I did that? I don't want to be political. It's probably my fault that she did that. What's wrong with me? I should know better than that. And I thought, but listen, this was also part of the quote. Part of the quote was this: you are sovereign. Your nervous system is your temple. Your frequency is your vote. Your breath is your broadcast. Let the world scream if it must, but let you stay rooted. Peace is not a weakness, it's your weapon. It breaks spells, not by force, but by refusal to participate in collapse narrative. I'm like, that's what I really said. So why did you do that? I must have been wrong, though. You see what I'm doing? I'm making all these assumptions, because I can tell you one thing. I did not make a phone call. I did not send a text or an email. I did not have a conversation with this person at all. And yet I made up this whole story about why it is that she did what she did. That's making assumptions, my friends. That's making assumptions. I don't have any evidence that that's the truth, but that's making the assumptions. And that's what our mind likes to do. If there's a blank in our mind, it wants to fill it in. It wants to fill in the blank. It doesn't like to have anything, it wants to find its place in the world, right? It wants to know. Without having any evidence, it wants to fill that in, because now I feel, all right, that's why. You know, that makes me feel better somehow? Is that what it is? Filling in the blank? That's what we do. The problem with assumptions, though, is not that we fill in the blank, but it's that we believe that they're true. That's the thing with assumptions. Because I don't think the idea is ever, I'll never make another assumption. No, I will make assumptions. You're making them right now. I'm making them right now. We make assumptions. The thing is believing that they're true. Believing that they're true. That's where we get tripped up. That's where we get tripped up. Because our mind wants to be in control and it wants to have order in the world. And so if I just know this and that's the truth, then okay, I can go from there. Here's what Ruiz says. We have the tendency to make assumptions about everything. All of us. The problem with making assumptions is that we believe they are true. We only see what we want to see and hear what we want to hear. We don't perceive things the way they are. We have the habit of dreaming with no basis in reality. We literally dream up things in our imagination. That story I just gave you, oh yeah, you see, you dream it up in your imagination because we don't understand something. Or we just need that filling in that blank thing. We make assumptions about the meaning, and when the truth comes out, the bubble of our dreams pop, and we find out that it was not at all what we thought it would be. And that happens a lot. If you're honest with yourself, I want to say it happens a lot. Because that's the thing about assumptions. They rarely are the whole truth and nothing but the truth. They rarely are the truth. Sometimes they're so far from the truth that it's funny. Right? I mean, I made up this whole story and none of it was true. But like I said, it's not wrong. It's not wrong to make assumptions. What limits us is our belief that they are true. So what do we do about that? How do you stop doing that? Because listen, when we make assumptions, and mine was not totally benign, but some of the assumptions we make are pretty horrendous. And I'm not talking about assumptions we make about groups of people, like Republicans and Democrats and trans people and gay people and white people and dark people and rich people and poor people. And I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the people in your circle right now. Often the people closest to you, in your families and friends. I'm talking about these people right here. That's what I was talking about last week. That making up stories about that makes us uncomfortable. It puts us in sticky situations. Are you thinking about a time when that might have happened for you? It put you in a sticky situation. Maybe it ruined an entire relationship and you have no evidence of what exactly that was about. But you have a story and you believe it. So it's true for you. So what do we do about that? What do we do about that? Well, why do we make assumptions in the first place? I say the first reason is we're afraid to ask questions. We're afraid to ask questions. We would rather make up a story and stay in our little cocoon and not have to deal with anybody, and we would just rather do that than ask a question. Or maybe we're too lazy. We're too lazy and we don't want to listen to what the other person has to say. We're lazy. We don't want to engage or spend the time to understand, so we're like, nah. Or maybe we are just disinterested totally, like we don't really care. We don't really care. It's much easier, like I said, to make up our own story and get on with our life. That's it. That's it. All based on assumptions, nothing in fact. Nothing in fact. Well, listen, I don't have too much to say if you're disinterested or lazy. I mean, that's on you. You know? I mean, disinterested or lazy, that's the way you want to be, that's the way you want to be. No judgment about it, but I don't really have any word to share with you about that. But if you are interested in deciding, hey, you know, maybe I can be braver about asking questions, well, let's go there for a little while. Because that's what it takes. It takes a little bit of bravery and courage to ask questions, especially if they're hard questions. And then you've got to listen for the answer. And the answer you get isn't always the answer you want to get. And the answer you get isn't always the whole story either, that you can start making assumptions from that as well. Mm-hmm. You see what happens? Like we're like, oh, it's much easier if I just make up a story. It takes a little bit of effort to do this, but I'll tell you, there is a freedom in not making assumptions that you don't have when you do. There's a freedom and a sense of self that is nowhere near the assumption thing. So, to improve your communication is what the suggestion is. To ask a question. It's really very simple. It's not always easy. It takes some courage, especially when it's difficult. And then to realize that no matter the answer you get may not be the full answer. Because when you're on the other side and you're giving the answer to a hard question, do you realize how many times that I am not 1,000% truthful? That I may not be sharing the whole story because I might not be courageous enough to share the truth. So those two things, like asking, but don't expect the whole story to be given to you in a neat package. that you understand everything. Those are ways of improving your communication. And listen to yourself. Yeah. And to admit to yourself that you may not have the full answer. You may not have the full answer. And really what that's about is practicing to allow yourself to rest in uncertainty. The mind hates it. The mind does not like uncertainty. The mind does not like blank spaces. We would rather have the list and have it all figured out and know exactly what somebody else feels, where they're coming from. How about to practice to be in uncertainty? To be okay with blank space. I have taped to the bottom of my computer, I've shared it with you before, a quote, I can't remember who it is now, but it goes like this. It has taken my entire life to understand that I do not need to understand everything. I mean my entire life, I'm still working on that one, it's still on the bottom of my computer. Like I don't need to understand everything. I can leave blank space in my life. I can leave it. Filling it with assumptions and making up stories? No, blank space. Blank space, like saying, you know what? I really don't know for sure. I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure why this person did what they did with regard to soul surrender. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I can say, I have a story about that. In fact, Renee and I do that to each other. When we know we're going down that road, we say, yeah, this is a story I'm making up. And then we say the story. But here's what happens is, when you know it's a story you're making up and you admit it's a story you're making up, it doesn't burden you anymore. Like you know it's a story. And you know the story might be true or it might not be true. It might be partially true or it might be, it's a story. And when you admit to yourself that it's a story, there's a freedom that you don't have when you live in assumptions. Yes, from long ago, with a story that many of you have heard, so I won't tell it again, it's making assumptions, and it's a story. We're making up stories. That's how Renee and I catch ourselves. Am I making up a story? Yep, let me make up this story. Well, I'm making up a story about that driver that just wouldn't let me in the turn lane here. Can't he see I have a North Carolina plate and I'm in South Carolina? He's why won't he let... You never know, he just might be distracted by his phone, which would be another whole thing. Why is he looking at his phone? But it's easy, we do it all the time to make up those stories. We do it all the time. Improve your... Practice allowing space. Here's another thing that I want to bring to our attention. Don't make assumptions that the people closest to you know exactly what you want and how you feel.
Amen.
I mean, we do it all the time. Except we were out in Greenville, South Carolina for a few days this week, and Renee went into a coffee shop to get herself a scone. And instead of getting a scone for me, she got a peach hand pie. Because she knows I love pies. It was so nice when you get it right. She didn't really have to make an assumption. She knew that, right? But we don't know that about each other all the time. We don't know how each other feels or what each other thinks. So you know what? Ask. Ask. And then don't expect the other person to share all the details about that either. Right? Like ask. Well, here's what I wanted to say is, not ask, tell people. I already did the ask thing, right? Don't assume other people know what you want. Let them know. Just let them know. Renee knows I like pie. In fact, I don't even get cake for my birthday. I get pie. Like she knows that because I've asked for it. All right? So ask for what you want. Say something about how you feel. But the expectation that the other person always do that for you, or that takes care of what your request is, don't do that. Don't do that. I don't always expect Renee to get me a peach hand pie. I don't always have that expectation. When she does, it's fabulous. It was so good. It was the best hand pie I've ever had. The crust was so good. I'm telling you, my mouth's watering thinking about it. Ask for what you want. Listen, It's just honest communication. And some of us are afraid of honest communication. You know why? Because we don't want to be confrontational. Anybody know anybody like that? Anybody like that? Well, I don't like confrontation, so I don't know what to do. You know, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to ask for what I want because I don't want to confront anybody. I don't want to have that discomfort. So, where Renee and I live, there are 4 houses. One here, one here, one here, one here. And there's a courtyard in between like this that goes to our front doors. It's really quite nice. It's a little patio homes, right, like this. And there's a gate here, and you can go to the front doors of each one. And we let our dogs out there because you can gate it off and the dogs can go out front. Well, our neighbor got a dog, a puppy. Her name's Kira. She's a wild child. Of course, she's a puppy. She's a puppy, right? And so they, at the beginning, they would let Kira out, and Kira started peeing at our front door. A lot. A lot of peeing. I was like, Renee, this is not going to work. You know, this peeing at the front, it's starting to smell. It's not going to work. You know, will you talk to Emily? Because she's out with Guinness out there, and Olivia's out there with Sugar Plum, and they're always talking about the dogs. And me, I can't go out in the summer because mosquitoes eat me alive. So I stay in the house. I'm like, talk to Emily. No, I don't want to talk to Emily. I feel like it will be a confrontation. Like, really? I mean, we can't ask our neighbor for their dog not to pee at our door? Like, that's an honest communication, right? It doesn't, we don't have to think about it as a confrontation. It's honest communication. So I did. I put some mosquito spray on, put long sleeves on, hat, went outside. I said, Emily, Kira's a wild child. She is so great. I said, but you know, we've been noticing she's peeing a lot at our front door and it's starting to smell bad. I said, when you're out here, can you shoo her away from our front door? Oh yeah, I can do that. You know, she knew. I mean, I'm happy we got the result we did. But to clearly communicate is not confrontational. Just ask for what you want. Just ask for, you don't always get what you want, but ask. It's honest communication. Honest communication. Find your voice. Find your own voice. And the other thing is to be honest with yourself. You know, we make assumptions about ourselves all the time. Here's one we make a lot of. I can do it myself. I don't need any help. I can do it myself. Sometimes that's true. And sometimes it's not true. And so don't assume you can do it yourself. Here's what I've noticed as I've aged. What I could do at 35 is not what I can do today. It just isn't what I can do today. I have an older body. Things are different. I have a knee replacement. I have a hip replacement. You know, it's not the same. So why would I assume that I can do the same thing I did when I was 35 when I'm not 35? Y'all know how old I am.
31.
31. 36. 67. I mean, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So be honest with yourself about that. Don't make assumptions about that. Here's the other thing. Don't make assumptions that it's impossible either. Like, I couldn't possibly do that. Or if I want to do the age thing, I'm too old to do that. Well, maybe not. I mean, if I'm talking about writing, or I'm starting my pottery studio again, doing pottery again, I think I can do that. Like, don't assume you can't. Like, don't make either assumption. Do what I'm asking you to do is take a minute and decide. Like, all right, do I need to ask for some help? Yeah, that makes sense. You know, why should I try to carry this pottery wheel in the garage by myself when Renee's right here? I mean, come on, let's pick it up and do it together. All right? Don't make those assumptions about yourself either. Be honest with yourself. Take a moment. And this is a practice. So this is a practice over and over again. Because like I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, it's not about never making assumption again. It's about recognizing it, acknowledging it, and deciding not to believe everything your mind tells you. Not to believe every story that your mind constructs for you. It might be true, it might not be true. But if we're using the Spiritual Soul Center to prepare ourselves to go out in this world that's crazy and upside down and sideways, then isn't it wise to prepare ourselves in this way? To not look around and make assumptions. To become clear as we can, to acknowledge when we're telling ourselves a story. Use it. Use our method. Hey, I'm going to tell a story right now because it's a story. Or, Renee, we're just making up stories right now. Yeah, we're just making up a story. Maybe we need to do some more research. Maybe we need to make a phone call. Which, by the way, that's what I'm going to do to this person who stopped giving money and unsubscribed. This week, I'm going to call and say, let's go to lunch, because we go to lunch every once in a while. Like every 2 or 3 months, we would go to lunch. So it's about time to go to lunch. And instead of ignoring it and just going to lunch and say, well, we went to lunch, so I'm off the hook, kind of thing. I'm going to ask. I'm going to say, what happened? Tell me. Tell me the truth. Tell me what you can tell me about that. I want to know. Not being mad, not being upset, because people change their minds, by the way. People change their minds. So what is that about? So that's what I'm going to do this week. Well, not this week. I'm really busy this week. I don't have time for lunch this week because I'm meeting with them. Anyway, I'm going to do that. That's my plan.
You're going to schedule it.
I'm going to schedule it. Yes, thank you, Pam. Pam to the rescue again. I'm going to schedule it. I'm going to not view it as a confrontation, but just lunch with my friend. And to ask the question. And to be ready to hear the answer. And to practice not taking it personally. And to being okay. Because in the end, I love her for who she is. I love her for who she is. And how she is. And I'm good with that. All right? So let's take a few minutes this morning and sit with these ideas. Maybe do a little self-reflection on the stories that you tell yourself. They don't have to be these big stories. Some of them are big stories. They're these little things that happen every day. And if we can just be aware of them, if we can just take notice of them, maybe be a little lighter about them, we will be lighter. We'll have more freedom in ourselves. We'll have more space in ourselves. I will go so far as to say we'll be less grouchy. We'll be less angry. We'll be less fed up with other people when we realize that we're making up the story. That it may or may not really be that way. Give ourselves just a little bit of room. So let's sit for a few minutes together. remember to catch ourselves. Catch ourselves making up the stories, filling in the blank. Let it make us be more humble. Let it give us more courage to ask a question, to ask for what we want. Let it make us fearless. To practice not making assumptions. It sounds easy, and it takes practice. And so we've invited, and I've invited you in to that practice. So let's practice well. Amen. Deep breath in. May I be filled with loving kindness.
May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all be well. May all be peaceful and at ease. May all be happy.
Love you all.